energy emanated from the auditorium, which was filled with high school kids. A night when the brave and the brazen took center stage, presenting everything from dubious magic tricks to emotional poetry readings. It was the annual talent event. It was a night worth remembering. Excitedly anticipating the next performance, the audience was loud, and their laughing could be heard reverberating off the walls. In spite of this, nobody was ready for what was about to take place. He sat in the back row, his shoulders slumped, and his fingers anxiously fidgeted with the hem of his sweatshirt. Ethan Carter was feeling anxious. His quiet, meek, and painfully bashful nature made him the youngster that everyone ignored. When he did speak in class, it was in a voice that was so faint that it was practically a whisper. He talked very seldom. To the majority of people, Ethan was nothing more than the shy kid, the one who disappeared into the background like a shadow. However, Ethan was in possession of a secret, which he had concealed for a considerable amount of time. An uproar of laughing swept across the room as soon as his name was brought out. What about Ethan? Someone chuckled and said, "The Ethan. What's he gonna do? Read a book?" Even when the volume of the laughing increased, Ethan did not show any signs of flinching. After rising to his feet, his pulse was beating, and he approached the platform with a calm purpose. He sat down at the grand piano, which had a glossy surface that shone brightly under the lights, and the spotlight appeared on him. His fingers were hanging over the keys for a little period of time, and the crowd became more restless as a result. One of the voices in the background yelled out, "Come on, shy kid, play something." After taking a few deep breaths and closing his eyes, Ethan immediately started playing. Initially, the sounds were gentle and uncertain, much like the beginning of a novel. Nevertheless, an unexpected occurrence took place. The music intensified, and the auditorium was filled with a sound that was so stunning and so strong that the crowd fell into a startled quiet. With a level of accuracy and devotion that seemed unattainable for someone of such a young age, Ethan's fingers floated over the keyboard. A song that appeared to weave together love, grief, and hope in such a manner that it left everyone stunned. And unable to catch their breath, the melody was eerie and beautiful. As opposed to just being a performance, it was a revelation. The timid youngster who had been ridiculed, ignored, and undervalued was now in control of the room with a presence that no one could have expected that she would have. A genuine respect had replaced the audience's previous ridicule, and they sat in awe instead. The music swept over some people, and some even had tears in their eyes as it did so. Following the sound of the last note, there was a brief period of complete quiet. Following that, the auditorium was filled with a standing ovation that was so loud that it rocked the very walls. Following his hasty exit from the platform, Ethan stood up with a flushed face and smiled shyly before leaving the stage. Mrs. Thompson, his music instructor, was waiting for him outside of the performance space. Ever since she had faith in Ethan, she had been urging him to make his talent known to the whole world. It was with a beaming joy in her eyes that she replied, "I told you they'd love it." Despite being overcome by the reaction, Ethan nodded his head. It was not the end of the tale, however. Ethan was unaware that when he was performing that night, a member of the crowd had been filming his performance. The video was published on the internet, and within a few hours, it became quite popular. The bashful young man who had shocked everyone with his remarkable skill had individuals from all over the globe attracted by his incredible gift. Scholarships in music, invitations to play at important places, and even the opportunity to work with well-known composers were among the many packages that were presented to me. Overnight, Ethan's life underwent a transformation, yet he remained the same modest and soft-spoken young man he had lived his whole life. To motivate others, he shared his tale and encouraged others to follow their interests, regardless of how improbable they seemed to be. He made advantage of the newfound platform he had acquired. "Everyone has a song inside of them," he said in an interview. "Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to let it out." Ethan Carter, a great pianist whose music affected millions of people, became a household name with the passage of time. However, for those individuals who had been there in the theater on that particular evening, he would forever be remembered as the timid young man who sat at the piano and left the whole audience breathless. Each time he gave a performance, he brought to everyone's attention the fact that often the voices who are the least loud have the most profound tales to share. This was only the beginning of Ethan's viral performance. The world was clamoring for more information from the quiet genius, and he found himself thrown into a tornado of opportunity that he had never experienced before. It was not fame that Ethan craved. Rather, it was the music. It had always been his safe haven, a place where he could express feelings that were too complicated to be expressed via words. In this moment, he was speaking to the whole globe. After the talent event, he returned to Carnegie Hall for his first significant performance. Mrs. Thompson had encouraged him to make the most of the opportunity. The invitation had come as a surprise to him. In her words, "This is your opportunity to demonstrate to the world who you are." Whispers of the Quiet was a composition that Ethan had written himself, and he had put in many hours of rehearsal, putting every ounce of his being into the work that he was about to play. The big hall was completely full on the evening of the event. Ethan Carter was a phenomenon that was seen by a large number of people from all over the world, including celebrities, music reviewers, and music aficionados. His anxious figure was lit by the spotlight as he made his way onto the platform. However, Ethan's thoughts were elsewhere as the audience exploded in cheers. When he was just 6 years old, his grandmother had given him a piano present, and he was thinking about the little dusty piano that was in his childhood house. He had found his passion for music in that secluded area of his living room, and it was there that he had that realization. After closing his eyes, he went down at the piano and started playing. A lovely and eerie melody, Whispers of the Quiet, began to play, and its first notes drifted through the air. A narrative was conveyed by the piece. It was a tale of solitude, of discovering power in silence, and of the beauty that may be found in the things that are not said. Over the course of the performance, the audience was immersed in Ethan's universe, a world in which each note was a stroke of the brush on a canvas of feeling. Following the conclusion of his remarks, there was a brief period of silence in the audience, which was followed by a tremendous standing ovation. His composition was likened to the works of famous composers such as Chopin and Debussy, and he was lauded as a once-in-a-generation talent by the critics. But along with fame came difficulties. When Ethan was under continual pressure to outdo himself, he battled so much. More than simply a little child with a piano, he had become a symbol and a source of inspiration. He served as a beacon of hope for those who looked to him for evidence that even the most reserved among us might accomplish much. Ethan felt as like he was losing himself in the cacophony at times, and it was a great load for him to bear. After a particularly arduous tour, Ethan soon found himself back in his hometown on a specific evening. He found himself wandering inside the ancient theater, which was the place where everything had started. It was silence in the seats, and the stage was empty. In the same piano that he had played on that fatal night, he sat down and let his fingers to move with the rhythm of the keys. His inner struggle was reflected in the music that he released, which was genuine and uncensored. It was at that very time that he took a significant realization. He did not have to be flawless. He only needed to be honest with himself. It was Ethan's decision to remove himself from the limelight for so long, not as a pianist who was renowned all over the globe, but rather as a student who was hungry to learn and develop. He went back to school. He began teaching piano to youngsters from disadvantaged backgrounds, learned music theory, and experimented with a variety of musical styles. The teacher informed his pupils, "Music is not about fame or applause. Connection is the key here. Telling your tale, even if it causes your voice to tremble, is the message." Through the years, Ethan's professional life progressed. In order to create a style that was distinctively his own, he made CDs that combined elements of classical music with inspiration from current music. His work included collaborations with artists from a variety of fields, including painters, writers, and dancers, in order to provide multimedia experiences that pushed the limits of what music might be. In spite of this, he never stopped playing the piano, which was his first passion, no matter how far he traveled. It was a concert series named The Sound of Silence that he worked on, and it was one of his most memorable initiatives. In order to disrupt the manner in which listeners perceived music, the concerts were held in unorthodox locations such as abandoned warehouses, mountaintops, and even underwater. In addition to listening with their ears, attendees were invited to listen with their emotions as well. Discussions regarding the significance of listening to voices that are often ignored and the power of silence were sparked as a result of the series' meteoric rise to fame on a worldwide scale. The invitation to judge a talent competition at Ethan's former high school brought his trip full circle and brought him full circle. He was able to see himself in the youngsters' apprehensive grins and shaking palms as he watched them perform at the school. Exactly as they had been with him all those years before, the crowd became more restless as a timid young lady entered the stage to play the violin. However, Ethan leaned forward, his eyes welling up with a sense of encouragement. Due to the fact that the girl was so talented, the room went quiet as soon as she started playing. Upon completion of her speech, Ethan was the first person to rise up and cheer. The girl approached him after the concert, her eyes brimming with appreciation as she did so. She inquired, "How did you manage to accomplish that? In what ways did you overcome your fear?" He grinned at me. He readily acknowledged, "I did not. A new lesson that I've learned is that you don't have to let fear stop. It is very uncommon for the things that terrify us the most to be the same ones that shape who we are." Ethan had a feeling of calm as he exited the theater on that particular evening. A bashful child who had previously surprised a room full of doubters, he had gone a long way since we had last seen him. But he was still the youngster in many respects. He was reserved, he was contemplative, and he was profoundly enamored with the enchantment of music. Not only that, but he was well aware that as long as he remained authentic to who he was, his narrative would continue to motivate people, one note at a time.